Now memorize the appearance of this antenna, which is part of a large geographical array of similar antennae that are used to steer and focus scalar energy transmissions to targeted vector locations around the world. And here we see it showing up as part of the cilia hair formations in the inner ear. When we look at the stamen within a flower, we see patterns and structures that we can now recognize as having a scalar energy function. And here we see the same cilia-like structures of the inner ear or of a flower stamen, but here we are looking at a scan electron microscope image of the outer rod segment of the retina of the eye. And here we see the hexagonal honeycomb shapes that these rods assume as they arrange themselves within the retina mosaic. Now here we see a bee pollinating a flower, and this is a scan electron microscope of the human tongue. We are all familiar with the slow turning wind energy towers that extract energy from a passing airflow. Efficiencies achieved have dramatically increased with the addition of vortex generators on the leading edges of the turbine blades. This concept is based on the vortex generators on the tail fins of whales. As we mentioned earlier, fish and birds and insects all use vortex generation techniques to improve their movement performance and to tap additional energy as free energy from the scalar energy field. This set of vortex generators on the whale's tail gives a kind of new meaning to the aviation expression of having a strong tailwind. But if you look carefully at this picture, you will see vortex generating bumps on the dermal ridges of our fingertips. The dimples in golf balls are vortex generators that add scalar field energy to the ball in flight. Dimples, after all, are the inverse of bumps. The performance of small aircraft can be substantially boosted by adding vortex generators to the top surface of the wings. Rotating blades with double helical design can tap scalar energy in wind energy applications. Tall, cylindrical chimneys are prone to self-destruct by vortex-induced turbulence that they create on the downwind side. This problem is overcome by adding a double helix to the chimney's outer surface. This shows a computer simulation of the process by which inward waves are converted into outward waves. The phenomenon of spin can also be visualized by the double rotation that the waves undergo as they transit the toroid core. This is our toroidal energy field structure model of planet Earth. When we look down on the North or South Pole from space, we see evidence of the hole in the donut by the ring produced by the aurora lights. And here we see the donut in this gamma ray image of a magnetic star in the constellation of Pictor. Have you ever imagined that an apple is actually a donut? And here is a galactic donut cloud. By viewing the donut or toroid from above, we see a spiral pattern that is known as a Fibonacci spiral. It has a special shape that is based on a mathematical linkage that exists between circles and squares. This is another type of scalar antenna that is created as a helically wound toroid. Look carefully at the pattern that is created by the windings. And here we see it repeated in the structure of the spiral aloe, and in the hearts of many flowers. This exact pattern also shows itself in this spiral galaxy. And again in the human ear we have it showing in the spiral cochlea, the hollow bone inside which the tiny hairs which we were looking at earlier are located. Let us recall again the phase-locked wave structure from our computer simulation. Instead of visualizing clouds or sand, let us now consider light. Specifically, we are talking about special coherent light, laser light. Laser light is created by the same wave dynamics as we created by flapping the rope that we had tied to the wall. Forward and time-reversed waves on the rope created the frequency-locked scalar wave on the rope. So also in lasers, forward and time-reversed light waves set up a scalar wave which we call a laser beam. This picture shows that when we inject several atoms into a laser beam, the individual atoms will phase lock into the stationary scalar wave of the laser beam and will settle into the lowest energy pockets within the beam where they are trapped. It may be difficult to imagine the reality that light creates variations in its local gravitational field. But just as we saw with sand ripples and wave clouds and shape-throwing flocks of starlings and atoms locking into crystal formations, all particles migrate to the lowest energy points in the local space. This is the nature of gravity. Here we see a device that traps droplets of water within a steerable laser beam. The droplets can then be transported as desired by redirecting the laser beam. Through what we have discussed up to this point, we must agree that everything is not as we have believed it to be. In fact, I think you will be amazed at how little actually appears to be left standing of what you were taught at school or in college. I have discovered in my own journey of re-education that I now understand why I found it so difficult to fully grasp much of the material I was taught during my years of study at physics and engineering college. The reason is simply that the concepts were too complicated to be true. I find there is great wisdom in these words of Confucius. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Confucius was born around 500 BC. Isn't it amazing how little has changed in the 2,500 years since then? Let's take a journey back in human time. We are aware of many great projects from the distant past. Ancient standing stone circles dot the landscape of the British Isles, like this little stone circle at Drumbeg in Ireland, or the famous Stonehenge in England. Then there are the truly massive pyramids in many countries around the world, with massive stones that are perfectly fitted. Consider the enormous sizes of some of the stones that were transported long distances to the sites of construction. This stone at a quarry in Lebanon weighs over 1,000 tons. The Great Pyramid at Giza had been clad with massive slabs of polished limestone. All that remains intact are these that we can see around its base. Can you imagine these slabs weighing 10 to 20 tons being placed with a surrounding gap of only 1/50th of an inch, a half millimeter, the thickness of a razor blade? Satellite mapping shows that the Great Pyramid at Giza is constructed within an accuracy of 6 millimeters or a quarter of an inch on a base area of 13 acres. Also, satellite mapping shows that the sides of the Great Pyramid are concave to the same curvature as the Earth. Isn't it time that we stopped denying the knowledge that our ancients possessed? I do not propose to have a theory as to how these massive stones were quarried, transported and raised in construction, or indeed what their uses were. But I will make some scalar energy-inspired observations. Pyramids are not only a phenomenon on planet Earth. Here is a pyramidal structure from planet Mars that is of similar size to the Great Pyramid at Giza. Pyramids were built in a time when love and respect was present in humanity. This is the only period which produced stone art that shows someone giving a flower to another. These are the daughters of Nefertiti. I draw your attention to the shapes of their heads. Here is a skull from Peru in South America. And here is another one. We mentioned earlier the beautiful lenticular clouds that routinely form over particular mountains because of the effects the scalar energy of these mountains cause within the surrounding scalar energy field. Like this formation over Mount Rainier in Washington State, and this one over St. Helens volcano, and this one over Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii, and this absolutely magnificent one over the volcanic mountain Kaituna in New Zealand. Three things I want to point out. One is that these lenticular clouds only occur over volcanoes, active or extinct. So we see that energy gateways exist through volcanoes, stargates if you wish to call them by another name. The second is that the word pyramid is composed of the Greek words para, meaning fire, and medos, meaning measures. The third is that pyramids are extremely similar in shape to volcanic cones.